as like analog or experiential as possible. So almost all the movies I saw, I was going out to a local movie theater. I was, getting books from the library or reading books that I've had and I just haven't, read yet. Or books that I own and I haven't read yet. Or buying more vinyl, using my Walkman, my cassette player, and just investing in building my collection in tangible things that I can spend my time with. So I wanted to share them with you. Just some of the media, I guess more specifically, that I've been loving. So I wanted to start with movies. First poster in the background is for Kneecap, which is a film that came out this summer, I believe, and I was lucky enough to have gotten the poster from my local theater, which is super, super cool. But the film follows this Irish hip-hop trio named Kneecap, and it's a dramatized documentary. I went into it not knowing anything. I knew they were Irish, and that's it. And as I was watching, I thought it was like a fabricated story. I didn't think it was real. And then at the end, I realized the actors were the actual singers, and these were all real events, but like acted out, if that makes sense. I loved the cinematography was good. It was very like kind of bouncy and all over the place, but I really liked whenever they played their music, because they had their own music in the film. The way the lyrics would they weren't just on the bottom, they were all around them and moved to the beat, and there were all these little squiggles, and doodles all over the screen. Specifically, like when drums were being played, all these little squiggles would come off the drums. I found that to be really, really cool, and I thought it added to the film a lot, and yeah, I really liked it. It's very funny, and I was inspired to listen to their music, and I like it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite by any means, but I like what they stand for, and yeah, rad. Okay, next movie. This is one that I did not go to see in theaters. This one I saw just on my laptop, but I did a movie night with some of my friends, and we watched Her from 2013, directed by Spike Lee, which stars Joaquin Phoenix, Scarlett Johansson, and Amy Adams. It's like a romantic sci-fi set in the future, and the very basic premise, no spoilers, is that this user interface is developed to communicate with, people. It's just on their phone, and it's meant to be like a personal assistant, or, like someone you can talk to, like a therapist, or, but it develops as you speak to it. It learns to, I'm trying to think without spoiling, it learns your routine and the things that you like, and it just adapts to be the perfect thing for you, essentially. I thought the movie was beautiful, the score, beautiful, the acting, so good, and I really liked the kind of philosophical undertones of it. I thought that they explored the meaning of consciousness really well, and I think that is honestly the best thing that I've seen Joaquin Phoenix in. I really like his work. I really like him in The Village. If you haven't seen that, it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie. I like him in that. I mean, him and Joker is great. But I think he really shines in this movie. He did a fantastic, fantastic job. Okay, so next up is two films directed by Joachim Trier. They're Norwegian films. The first one is Worst Person in the World from 2021, and the second is Oslo, August 31st, which is from 2011. And I wouldn't say they're coming of age movies, they're more so coming of self or character studies. Both the protagonists of both movies are in their late 20s, early 30s, or that transitory kind of phase. And yeah, I think that the way it follows the protagonist, it follows the main character, but it doesn't necessarily shield, them being protagonist doesn't shield them from commentary being made on them, or them being morally gray, if not making bad decisions. It feels very realistic, and also the acting is incredible. I didn't write his name down, but there's an actor who plays leading role in Oslo, August 31st, and then the supporting role in Worst Person in the World, and then the lead role for Worst Person in the World plays a minor role in Oslo, August 31st. So Joachim Trier has actors that he really loves. I started learning Norwegian because of my love for the movies. I was looking to learn a new language, start learning a new language, and this really sparked interest. I want to get more into Norwegian film, and anyways, last thing I really enjoyed, my local theater hosted a Manhattan short film festival event, just a showing, and there were 10 total films, all of which I was surprised there was not a single one that I didn't like. There were some that were definitely way better than others, but I should have written the names down, but I really liked it. I definitely want to watch more short films. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to books. Hopefully we'll get away from this just being just whispers. I'll have some triggers for you. So for the first one, I don't have the book on me. It was a library book, but it was called At the Existentialist Cafe by Sarah Bakewell, and it covers modern or 20th century existentialism. So existentialists such as Simone de Beauvoir, Albert Camus, John Paul Sartre, Martin Heidegger, and Merleau-Ponty. Yes. And it's interesting. It's not quite, I would not say this is an intro to existentialism. It is more so an intro to notable existentialists. So it covers their lives and kind of the overlap of all these different philosophers that were, generating ideas at the same time, and how their overlap, how their interactions in each other's lives shaped their personal philosophies, and also just the world events around them. I think it's really interesting. I've never read a book like it before. It's a huge book. I think it's 400 pages. starting off with Brave New World. I'm sure a good chunk of people had to read this in high school for English class. But this is a dystopian novel, and it's set in the future, basically, where people are no longer born, they're created in labs, and there's different classes, or like almost like a caste system of people, and it's very like it's a closed society, I guess. I'm trying to describe this without giving it away, but I think that something Aldous Huxley does very well is you read a lot of dystopia, and it's basically like the government taking away everything from people, and they're just left to fend for themselves. This is almost the opposite. This is the government gives people everything they want and more, and kind of like feeds this overconsumption, and just like people get so sick of information that they just stop participating in knowledge and like the sharing of knowledge, and it's very interesting. I really like this book. I've read this was my third time reading it. I read this my sophomore year of high school, and then my senior year of high school, and there's still notations throughout it. I did blue ink, I think my sophomore year, and then black ink my senior year, and as I read it, it was really interesting, like more than half a decade ago. Crazy. Huxley is like an incredible writer. So yeah. Alright, and then lastly is, this is a library book. I just want to make sure my library is going to be shown. Okay, this is Play It As It Lays by Joan Didion. So this is a novel, a more traditional novel, I guess, and it follows Maria, who it's this woman who's living in, I don't think Los Angeles, but or maybe it is Los Angeles. Yeah. Los Angeles, but she drives like all across the coast of California. But anyway, so Maria is this woman who has been in a couple films and almost has this like lost potential to her. Like, she's not a starlet, but she's in these very like important, you know, LA groups, as I said, during the 60s, 70s, and yeah, so she's in these very sophisticated, or not sophisticated, but just like higher society, you know, rich, affluent. That's a good way to put it. He's very affluent to social groups, and Maria ends up deciding, you know, after her mom dies, after her relationship with her husband falls apart, and this is not spoilers, don't worry, but and after her daughter, she's like separated from her daughter, she just kind of gives up on trying to fit in. She's no longer she no longer wants to like play this part, play the game of these social circles, and she's a very interesting character. She, like I said, she just goes on these like, will drive all day, just to drive. She like to fall asleep, will think about driving. She will go to the grocery store and she fills up her cart with groceries, even though she's just living by herself. She just doesn't want to be one of those like sad single women who like buys a glass of wine and like a bunch of magazines and some like small portions of food. Like, she's fascinating, and she's not necessarily likable or unlikable. The thing that really fascinates me about this novel is it's so bare bones. Like, it's pretty short. It's less than 200 pages. And there's chapters that are a paragraph long. Like, Didion manages to fit so much context into so little just quantity. You know, I feel like every sentence is so deliberately, you know, every word of every sentence is so deliberately chosen. It's a very carefully constructed book. Yeah, it's very interesting. At first, for the first like maybe 70 pages, I found it not hard to follow, but I was just kind of like, where's the plot, you know? Like, are we just following her? And that's kind of what it is. It's just kind of following her life. But as the book unfolds, you start to see this bigger picture, and there's little things mentioned in the beginning of the book that don't really not make sense, but you kind of come to realize their significance, or their effects later. I just think the way that she wrote this is fascinating. I really want to read more of her work. I know she has both fiction and nonfiction. If you guys have read a good amount of her oeuvre, his voice, and it's almost uncomfortable to listen to for that reason. Like, you become so immersed in his storytelling through his voice, if that makes sense. But I don't know, I think this song is just tragically beautiful. It's a love song, but it's also not about settling for somebody, but just kind of like this realization of like, oh, I'll never have perfect, but you're close enough to perfect. And it's kind of romantic. It's a little like it feels I don't know how I want to word this, like there's a line like oh no, I'm not gonna be able to remember. There's a line I'm not gonna be able to remember. I can think of the meaning. Let's see if it has it in here. Yes. Okay. It's talking about like, I can have the best, but I can have you at least. Let's see, this gives good opportunity to flip through. Here we go. Oh yeah. But I'd rather be working for a paycheck than waiting to win the lottery. There we go. So instead, waiting to win the lottery for the perfect person and just waiting your entire life, he wants to work towards building something. A paycheck, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be, this idyllic relationship, but it's something that he cares about and he wants to work towards. So it sounds a little unromantic, but then you realize like just how realistic it is. And yeah, anyways, I really like the song. I also, the rest of this album is good. Definitely, I like some of Connor Oberst's like solo work and his work with Phoebe Bridgers in Better Living Community Center more, but I think this album is, it's one of the best like indie albums of the 2000s. Okay, moving on. Next up is Say Yes by Elliott Smith. Elliott Smith, I love Elliott Smith. Another very evocative, is that the word? Evocative voice. And I feel like I'm using a word wrong. Don't quote me. But he has this almost like whiny voice that I don't know, it captures the melancholy of his song so well. And I think Say Yes it's kind of like deceptively like it sounds so beautiful, but it's really sad, like just kind of depressing song. And he kind of like draws this metaphor of like a girl who's like head over heels, but the guy just doesn't really care about her. Very beautiful song. And then the album Figure Eight, love that. That was also I think his last album before he tragically passed. But that album is so good. But I really like Say Yes off of, is it Because? Yeah. Alright, next up, literally any song by the Marias, specifically Run Your Mouth, All I Really Want Is You, and Little by Little. There's this one jazzy pop music. It's very sultry. Love it. Let me see. I just got their latest album on vinyl. So this is Submarine. This is the alternative cover, which I like way more than the cover they chose. But here's Maria, and then I don't know their names, but her bandmates. And this is the album Submarine. Submarine. So the tracks on this album are Ride, Hamptons, Echo, Run Your Mouth, my favorite, Real Life, Blur, Paranoia, Lejos de Ti. I hope I'm saying it right. Love You Anyway, I No Puedo, No One Noticed, Vicious Sensitive Robot, If Only, and Sienna. I also want to learn Spanish so I can understand their music. But yeah, literally any Maria song. They're one of few artists that I feel comfortable just putting them on shuffle, and any song that comes on will be good. That is very rare occurrence. Alright, next on to albums, even though I just pulled up an album. Alright, next, let me grab this vinyl. This is not a new record, but my appreciation for it is new. I'm gonna cover it just in case. I don't want to get demonetized, but this is Solar Power by Lorde. I have loved Melodrama, honestly, since it came out, but like truly listening to that album in high school, like it was just on repeat. And I would say a Melodrama, for probably close to 3 years, I would say Melodrama was like my favorite album of all time, and it's definitely still up there. I love that album. And I remember when Solar Power came out in 2021, and I was so excited because I was like, oh, more Melodrama, like more music that just speaks to my soul. And I didn't really get it. I guess it just didn't really speak to where I was at. But listening to this album this summer, it just kind of, I found it at the perfect time. So the tracks on here are The Path, Solar Power, California, Stoned at the Nail Salon, which is one of my favorites, Fallen Fruit, Secrets from a Girl Who's Seen It All, another one of my favorites, The Man with the Axe, Dominoes, Big Star, Leader of a New Regime, Mood Ring, and then Oceanic Feeling, which I think is honestly my favorite song of the whole album. And honestly, I think that song, and then like Stoned at the Nail Salon, Secrets from a Girl Who's Seen It All, and Oceanic Feeling, those songs alone, I think make this my favorite album. All the songs are so good, but those three in particular are just incredible. I think the thing that separates us from Melodrama is Melodrama was this kind of this ode to this like in between time of, you know, being a teenager and figuring your life out, and almost wallowing in your own sadness and in your own heartbreak, and just, you know, that is a part of being young. At least many would argue. But also just this like desire for more, you know. And this album, whoa, that was crazy. This album is about the appreciation for like the slow things in life, and growing up, and there's almost, instead of wallowing in one sadness, there's kind of this push for like, you can be happy and that's okay, and you can, you know, you can still feel your emotions, but you gotta push yourself to be okay. And it's very reflective, specifically on like Lord's own life, but it's very like retrospective album, oceanic feeling. Also deals with kind of looking at her life, or rather the lessons that she was that were imparted on her growing up in New Zealand, and like she kind of plays with this like, oh, here I am, and here's how my younger brother's experience kind of mirrors mine, and my experiences is kind of like mirroring my dad's. And then at the end of the song, she talks about like, oh, like if I have a daughter, will she have my widow's peak? Will she do all these things that I did when I was younger? And I don't know, I think it's so beautiful. And I was reading a lot of philosophy this summer, and this feels like a very philosophical album. I think it is so beautiful. And yeah. Okay, then last, I feel like everyone loved this album this summer, but I've brought my Charlie XCX. I have it on cassette. It was so funny. I got so many comments this summer when I was traveling. Not while I was at home for this summer, but as I was traveling, I got asked almost half a dozen times if my hair was dyed for, you know, Brad summer, and I just thought it was very funny. I felt very ahead of the curve, ahead of the trend curve, I guess. But this is perfect, just like strutting music, like, you know, walking or biking to go do your errands. Like, this is perfect to throw on. And I was not lucky enough to go to the Sweat tour, Charlie XCX and Troye Sivan, but I was lucky enough to go to two separate like brat dance parties. So one was kind of casual, it was just in this like brewery, and just kind of like event space. I don't know. And it was fun. It was a lot more chill. And there's definitely some dancing, but it was a lot more relaxed. And then I went to like an actual, there was one hosted at a club, and there was a DJ. She was playing and just brought her Charlie XCX, and then a bunch of other kind of similar music, like she was playing Caroline Polachek, she played some Addison Rae, old Kesha, like just kind of like club classic, like party girl anthems, and people were actually dancing. It was, I had so much fun. But this kind of sparked for me to go back and listen to more Charlie. So I've really been liking Welcome to My Island. So she was featured on Caroline Polachek's song, and like she did a remix. Love that song. And then Claws, Anthems, and Unlock It. 65, and then I feel like there's one I'm forgetting. Let's open her up. Is it gonna have? Nope, it's not on there. Oh, it doesn't have the track list on here. Okay, yeah, I feel content with that. Everything is romantic. Oh, and then, talk. Yeah. Oh, we should talk. We should talk. We should just talk. We should just talk to me. Yeah. Okay. Last category. It's getting to be such a long video, but I'm very pleased with that. YouTubers and podcasts. So this is kind of the one medium that, you know, I allowed myself to be on the internet for. But I tried to be a lot more reflective. Like after I watched, not every video, but a good set of videos I watched or podcasts I listened to, I would kind of like reflect on it a little more, especially podcasts. Like I would try to, I wouldn't say journal, but further, kind of like reflect on it through writing, and ask more questions, tie in different things. Yeah. Anyways, starting off, YouTubers. Frankie's Shelf. So that is Frankie's. Frankie's Shelf. And this is a book-centric channel. So they only started their channel in June, and I think they have just like a couple, like a dozen, maybe closer to 20 videos. And I watched their first video, just came up in my recommended, and I was hooked. So good. I think they have such a relaxing voice. Like honestly, they should do ASMR. They just have such a comforting presence, even through a camera. And they read so much. Like it genuinely, like I don't know if I aspire to be them or just like, but it is it is crazy to me. They will read like several 100-page books in like a day or two. It's very impressive. But they do monthly recaps of things they've read, or of books they've read, and like genre recaps. So they did like horror, and then like translated works that they really liked. Weird Women. They did one. I'm trying to think of the one that I just watched today that just came out. I'm not gonna be able to remember. That's okay. But I love their videos. They're one of very few creators that I like intensely, you know, pay attention to when they're posting so I can watch their new video. I love them. Next up, I'm so sorry for all the background noise. But next up is going to be Lauren Louise, who she is at Big Book Lady on Instagram. If you want to follow her there, but I like her on Instagram. She did post books, as her name would suggest, and then just more like aesthetic photo dumps. But I feel like her YouTube is where it's at. She has kind of vlogs that feel, I was gonna say effortless, but that's not true. They feel curated and very intentional, but not unpretentious, and they don't feel super like, oh, here's me getting out of the bed, or getting out of bed in the morning, and you know, my curtains are already drawn, and my hair's already brushed, and I already have makeup on. Like, it doesn't feel like that at all. You know, there's definitely an element of like, oh, this is, you know, a curated version of my life that I'm showing on the internet, but it still feels very, very natural. And she kind of intersplices whether it be voiceover or just her like actually talking to the camera with really beautiful shots of like food she's made, or just like items that are very beautiful, or like her clothing, or just her walking through the city that she lives in, which I believe is Manitoba in Canada. But yeah, I really like her videos. Are also very relaxing, I found. She also has such good book recommendations. Like, she's actually who recommended Played As It Lays. I watched a video and I decided to pick it up, and yeah, great recommendations. I love to watch her videos as I get ready. I find it just to be so comforting, and it's just enough of like, I don't want to say white noise. I feel like that discredits how interesting her videos are, but there's enough of like a relaxing quality to them where they can just kind of be on in the background, and it can just be like, oh, we're getting ready together, you're going about your life, and that's just happening in a window on my computer. Yeah, I don't know, I really like her videos. And lastly, moving on to like this kind of straddles YouTubers and podcasts, but HiveMind. So I got to see them live earlier this year in New York City. They did live shows, and I traveled to New York City to see them, and I had the time of my life. It was incredible. But they post like music and pop culture and just so much stuff. I feel like there's genuinely like something for, I'm not gonna say everyone, but for a good chunk of people. Their humor is something that is a little off-putting at times. They have a lot of like I don't want to say stupid, but they play with a lot of like puns, or just like plays on words, and they're kind of just, they play dumb sometimes, but I'm so sorry you can hear that. Anyways, they do a lot of games, so they have like a feud kind of style, and then like Jeopardy, and then they like will make brackets, or just to kind of do commentary on like movies, like how they aged, or just like albums, or just general happenings. Very fun, just entertainment. Entertainment at its finest. Okay, this is truly now the last thing, and this is just a podcast. This is The Gray Area with Sean Illing. This is, I believe, a Vox podcast, or like produced podcast. But this podcast, like, I don't think any podcast has been more like influential on just like practices I've adapted, or ways of thinking that I've adapted in my life. There's one episode that I recommended to so many people, and one that like really made me sit down after and think, and it was called Can a Friend Be Your Most Significant Other? And you know, they just talked a lot about like, you know, why is there such a heavy emphasis placed on your like romantic partner being your most significant other, and this kind of like exclusivity and that. But they also just talked a lot about like what friends can be to you, and what just meaningful relationships are, and it was very beautiful. Yeah. And I think something that they explored really well was this idea of like not what people can give you, but just what you can get out of every single one of your needs. And yeah, I thought it was beautiful. Also, they've had a couple that made me think so much that I wrote them down. Okay, let me see. There's how we all became a brand, which is talking about like what is authenticity, and this like need to perform specifically online. You're performing authentically here, and just kind of that like paradox. Why we can't pay attention anymore. Just talking about attention theft and identity politics and like positive negative feedback loops. Fascinating. Yeah, I wrote down that can a friend be your most significant other. Oh, something else I forgot to mention about that was like, they talked about this idea of like as a child, or a lot of children, specifically girls, have this like inseparable best friend, and like when and why does that go away? Very fascinating. And then what else? Back to the one about attention and branding. Can you be authentic when you're constantly performing for a subconscious audience? That's what I wrote. And talking about your image as a commodity. So good. Yeah. I truly love the podcast. I also think Sean Illing is just such a top tier interviewer. Like, he asks such good questions. He's so patient, but he's also like just pushy enough. Like he's really good at getting little he's really good at getting people to maybe go further than what you can tell is maybe like practiced or what they plan to talk about on the interview. Like he's really good at kind of like pushing conversation into a very interesting place. But yeah, this video is almost an hour, and it is the wee hours of the morning. I should get to bed, but thank you for letting me ramble. I cannot promise consistency in my content, but I hope see you soon.